Hello everybody, this is the third lecture of the IELTS. Today we are going to take how to answer true, false and not given questions presented by me, Haidar ALcasseer. You will have a long passage about some subject. After the passage there will be some statements. What you need to do is to decide if each statement is true, false or not given based on the passage. What you need to do first is to read the statements, then look for the information in the passage and decide. Now we are going to explain how to do that. True. How to decide this answer as true? If the fact is clearly written or written as a synonym in the passage. If the fact is clearly written or written as a synonym in the passage and the information matches the statement, they write true. We often see synonyms. If you know the fact is true and you do not see it clearly written, you don't see it with your eyes in the passage, do not write true. For example, if we have this in the passage, this increase in cybercrime has alarmed many experts. The question or the statement says cybercrime is on the rise. Let's come here. The statement here is true. Why? We have cybercrime and cybercrime. We have increase and on the rise as a synonym. So the question here is how to decide. Let's explain it again. Read the statement. Underline the synonyms, different words but they give the same meaning. Underline any key words. We notice here cybercrime is a keyword and on the rise is a keyword too. After underlining the keywords, go back to the reading passage and quickly scan it to look for the words or the synonyms of them. We notice here that cybercrime is mentioned in both sentences clearly and we can find the synonym of on the rise, and that is this increase. So both the statement and the sentence in the passage give the same meaning, in which we decided the statement is true. When you look at the statement and the sentence in the passage, look for contradictions if there is any, such as some, only, never, usually, all, etc. Because those contradictions change the meaning. For example, some people in England like tea with milk. Tea with milk is always preferred by British people. Let's reread it. In the passage it says some people in England like tea with milk, while in the statement on the question as we say, tea with milk is always preferred by British people. In this case, the statement will be false because the sentence in the passage says some, while the sentence in the statement means always. How do we decide this is always? Because it says tea with milk is always preferred by British people. So, the information will be different here. This is how they sometimes try to trick you in the IELTS. False. If the fact is clearly written but gives different or wrong information, it is false. Or when we have a contradiction that changes the meaning, as we have just explained. For example, The first personal computer was invented in the 1970s. That is the sentence of the passage, while the statement of the question says personal computers were first invented in 1990. The statement here is false because it gives wrong information. How? Because we have the first personal computers, okay, were first. We have invented, okay, manufactured, or whatever, any synonym that gives the same sense. But in the statement says 1970s, and here it says in 1990. So it is very clear that it's false. Another example. Some children should eat broccoli. That is the statement, and the question, that was the sentence in the passage, for example. And here the question says all children should eat broccoli. So the sentence here is false because we have some in the passage and all in the statement. So the information in the statement does not match, although the sentences say children should eat broccoli, because in the passage it says some, while in the question says all, or even the opposite. They will be different. Not given. Not given could be the most difficult one to decide. How? We will come to it. That means it's not mentioned. When the fact is not written, nor was no wrong information written either. In this case, do not deduce. Do not try to think. For the true, false, not given. Or sometimes they write yes, no, not given. They give the same sense. It's simply not given, which means the information is not mentioned in the passage. The information is not mentioned in the passage. We will have some example here. Although once eradicated from Toronto, bedbugs have made a comeback and are now considered one of the leading pests in the city. And the question says, rats are the most common nuisance Torontonians face. The statement here is not given because the sentence in the passage talks about bedbugs, and it says are one of the leading pests. One of here made the difference. Why? We will come to it. While the statement talks about rats and it says the most common nuisance. Let's come to analyze those sentences more. Bedbugs have made a comeback and are now considered one of the leading pests in the city. One of, when we say one of, it means they are not the most common. They are not number one. It could be number one, could be number two, could be number 10. That means there are other nuisance also, other pests that could be the most common. We are not sure. When I tell you, for example, about someone, he's one of the best, and I tell you another one is the best, okay? When I tell you that person is one of the best, that means he could be the best, he could be the second best, the third best. We don't know, but he's one of the best. It does not mean that he's the best or not. Okay, let's go on. If we have them, the sentences as although once eradicated from Toronto, bedbugs have made a comeback and are now considered one of the leading pests in the city. And in the statement says, rats are one of the most common nuisance Torontonians face. The statement here is not given to, because the sentence in the passage talks about bedbugs and it says are one of the leading pests, while the statement talks about rats, and it says one of the most common nuisance. One of and one of, although they have one of, but we come to the meaning of the sentence. It says one of the most common, and it says also one of the leading pests. One of and one of, that means any of them could be the most common, or any of them could be the leading, or they might not be the leading, both of them. It's something usual. But if we have them us, although once eradicated from Toronto, bedbugs have made a comeback and are now considered the leading pests in the city. I just omitted one of. Rats are the most common nuisance Torontonians face. The statement here is false, because the sentence in the passage talks about bedbugs and it says are the leading pests, while the statement talks about rats and it says the most common nuisance. So using one of in the passage made the difference for the first example which I said. Okay, now let us take another example here, which is something totally different. It's also not given. The first personal computer was invented in the 1970s. Personal computers were first invented in 1970. The statement here is not given, because the sentence in the passage says 1970s. The S here, which is added to the 1970, means time duration of 10 years, that is from 70 to 79, while the statement specified the year. Even if the statement says 71 or 73 and so on, but if it gives a year which is not from the time duration, it will be false, as we explained previously. Let me re-explain this in other words. When we say in the 1970s, that means it could be invented in 1970, 71, 72, 73 or 74, whatever, while in the statement we specified. So we don't know. We have a time duration from 7 to 79, and it says in 1970 in the statement, in the question. So we are not sure. We are not sure at all. So in this case, it will be not given. But if the question says, for example, 1996, it will be wrong. Okay. But if we have them as the first personal computer was invented in 1976. In 1976. That was in the passage. The question says personal computers were first invented in the 1970s. The statement here is true, because if the year is specified in the passage and we have the time duration in the statement in which the year is within, the statement is true. Why? Because 76 is a part of the 1970s. That means we haven't specified, but we gave the duration of the time, which means, let me illustrate that. If in the reading passage we have the time duration, that is the S added, and in the question we have a specified year which is apart from the time period, it will be not given, while the opposite, it will be true.